All right, back to New South Wales now, where the election was a ground-shaking event yesterday. Labor swept into power, ending a 12-year exile in opposition. Unbelievably, the Labor Party now governs in every Australian state and territory on the mainland. It's a very sad place the Liberals find themselves in, and here to have a chat about the ramifications of this is senior political journalist for the Australian newspaper, Brad Norington. Brad, thanks so much for your time. You predicted this result a while ago. What caused the public to dump the Liberals in New South Wales?
Well, it's essentially a mood for change, Cory. That's the overriding thing. All governments have their time eventually, as you know. And in New South Wales, there's 4-year terms. So they'd been there for 12 years. They'd cycled through 4 premiers. There'd been a raft of scandals. At this election, about 5 ministers were retiring, which is kind of sending a signal, if you like. It was really just time. I don't think so much, if you like, that Labor won this election as in the Coalition lost.
Yeah, this is what struck me, Brad, is that it seems there's a cycle that goes on in New South Wales. Whoever gets elected has scandal after scandal after scandal until the electorate gets tired of them and they've forgotten about the previous government scandals and they decide to have a change. Is there any truth to that, or is it just a recent pattern?
Well, New South Wales historically, I suppose, going back to the Rum Corps, has a history of corruption, and in the 60s, 70s of the last century, corruption was rife. I think it's to do with the nature of state politics, which is about, delivery of services and the dishing out of contracts in particular. There's a lot of money involved, and a lot of people are tempted to go down that dark path.
Yeah, unfortunately, I addressed that in some of my opening remarks because it does seem there are external string pullers in both political parties. Do you see there's any national ramifications here, or should I say for the Liberal Party at a federal level, or is this just a New South Wales thing?
I think it's mainly for New South Wales, that's true. I think there is some heart that some of the Labor strategists have taken out of this, that it's early days for the Albanese government, but they did notice the overlap in some of the seats where Labor performed quite well, in fact gained swings of more than 10%, as some, if you like, in their view, reinforcement that the Albanese government is doing okay. I would err more to the view that it is really a state-based issue, and people voted on state issues here. That they really wanted a change, even though the Labor opposition didn't fully spell out what they were going to do.
It was a spectacularly lacklustre campaign. There were no attacks on one side or the other, and I think Labor did stumble into government. But what's the path now for the Liberal Party out of this mess? They're clearly divided. They've got the woke Liberals. They're threatened by the Teals. They've got the more ideologically driven right-wing Liberals. They've got pressure from One Nation, who's had a very good result, I think, particularly in the upper house. What's the path they need to go from here?
Well, I think they do need to clean up their act, in the sense that they certainly have to stop this internal bickering, which has factional bases, but you've got even people within, say, Dominic Perrottet's own faction who seem to want to squabble among themselves, even at a cost of putting themselves in opposition. And then, as you say, the left of the Liberal Party has their own issues. But I would say that this defeat, while bad for the Coalition, and I'm writing this in The Australian for Monday, it's not a disaster. It's not a wipeout as it was for Labor in 2011. After all, it took Labor basically 12 years to come back, and even to claw back some of those seats in Western Sydney, the so-called Labor heartland that they thought was theirs. I think it is not as difficult a proposition for the Liberal Party in New South Wales, providing they can clean up their house. It's not a rout. Say if the Labor Party in New South Wales, once counting is finished, gets the 47 seats needed for an absolute majority, we know they'll do that. Then it's a matter of how many seats above that 47 they gain. Supposing they get 40 49, 50, maybe over 50, that's not out of reach for the Liberal Party if they get their act together to come back. Perhaps not in the next term, but it's all about building a base from there to come back.
And the key proviso, they've got to get their act together. Brad Norington, senior political journalist with the Australian newspaper. I look forward to reading your column tomorrow, and thank you very much for your time on Bernardi Tonight.